Hi everyone, it's your favorite atomic blonde here with my 3-body problem review. Wow. Where to start? Put a little banner up. This is a really hard one to review. Anybody obviously who's been watching my shows week on week knew I had a lot of reservations going into this show based on the trailer and how they'd moved the location, how they removed the lead character. But I've said all the way along, I will review it kind of open mind as a show and as an adaptation. So I guess to a degree, let's start with the easy one. As a show, look, it's a great bit of sci-fi. I enjoyed. I just sitting there watching some hard sci-fi as a show on TV. It was fine. It was good. Was it amazing? I still don't think it's amazing. I think a lot of the reviews are pretty accurate. That there's a lot of style over content in some areas. But the acting's pretty solid. The characterizations are fairly decent. I mean, obviously, a lot of these are brand new characters. They don't exist in the book. And the author, Lao Xian or Xian Lao, I've heard it pronounced both ways round, I'm not sure why. It focuses much more on the story, the themes, the sort of the formula of it all rather than the characters. It's not to say there isn't characterization in the book. You understand the characters' motives in the book, and why they're on one team and not the other team and things like that. But the focus is really more on the theories and the what's driving things like the 3-body problem. That's much more what's in the forefront. So I guess I struggled in the sense I found it a little bit jarring to watch, only because as other reviewers have said, you've got things kind of out of order. Like if you haven't read the books, you wouldn't know. And I will give credit to say that you don't know. When you're watching it, the story still makes sense. It still flows. It doesn't feel like it's ping-ponging all over the place. But when you've read the book, your brain is going, this is ping-ponging all over the place. The whole Staircase project is book 3. As I've mentioned before, the character Wade is book 3. The whole piece around Wall Faces is book 2. And that's fine. Like I say, that the show did flow, and I was really surprised by that, given how many changes that they made. I was really actually, that this hangs together pretty decently. I really enjoyed the period piece, as it were, the Cultural Revolution piece, and I did say I'd be interested to see how far they go or how graphic they'd go with the struggle session. And they went there. So absolutely kudos. They completely went there. And I've seen a few things going, I bet this isn't in the Chinese version. It is in the book. However, it's in the middle of the book because obviously censorship. So they sort of hid it quite a bit into the story, where it's very much in the front of the book for us. So I think absolutely kudos for going there, because without understanding that graphic nature of that period in time and what she witnessed, you don't understand her motivation for basically selling out the human race. You have to know this. So yeah, sorry, spoilers. This is going to contain spoilers. It says it on the screen. So and if you haven't seen it, don't watch reviews before seeing something. Go make up your own mind. So I loved that aspect. I really enjoyed that aspect. What we did lose is that, again, in the book, I probably moved more into the adaptation, but she's telling the lead character Wang this is her narrating and telling him all about Red Coast and her past, whereas we just sort of see it more as a flashback. And I think that lost a little bit of something, again, that kind of how the characters know each other and interact. But again, because they've removed Wang, I kind of get how they've just kind of done it as a flashback. So yes, I guess it was better than I expected it to be. But say it was a little bit. I had one aspect I really didn't think I was going to like, or looking at the diverse Oxford Five. Was the character Jack Rooney. I just thought, oh, and I absolutely loved him. I thought he really brought something, and that little bit of levity, because this is a hard going story. And he was also kind of like us. He kind of, even though he's very bright, obviously he dropped out of Oxford and used his physics knowledge to make the most amazing tasting snacks, which I kind of love. Very Western thing to do. You know, and his bedroom with all the Captain America shield and the Gremlin and the Falcon. I could just imagine people watching that going, "Oh, I want that bedroom." And I was like, "Oh, look at that on the shelf. That's so cool." Anyway, I digress. But I really enjoyed this character. So out of the new characters we were presented with, for him to be killed off, I was like, what? But so he did kind of represent us, I think, in a situation that he's kind of going, oh, come on, this is just a scam. Come on, aliens, are you insane? You know, so I think he really represented the audience in this, or part of the audience. Like some of the audience would be completely like, hell, aliens, I'm in. And the other part of the audience would be like quite skeptical about it all. And I think especially given his backstory, that say he's this multimillionaire now and he's always got people trying to ding him for money and scams and stuff. So that all tied up really well, and the whole how he was killed was pretty good as well. So yeah, I thought that he was a great addition, and really gutted that he's not going to be in it going forward. He's like the one thing I really liked in this adaptation that's not in the books. So yeah, I'd say I think they've done a really good job in making it accessible for most people. They explain the science pretty well. How they explain the 3-body problem and going around the sun and all of that. And I was really looking forward to how they showed the game. And some elements of that were good. But again, adaptation. They massively condensed it down. This is quite a big bit of the book going in and out of the game. Yeah, we'll come on to that. But the whole bit with the computer and Copernicus in the book is not Copernicus on screen, and how Copernicus behaves in the book is quite different. But that whole bit with them all floating up, I have to say that's exactly how I imagined it in my head reading the book. I think that bit was done really, really well. But I think it's a shame I think they really raced through a lot of the book to episode 5. It's clear they just wanted to get to episode 5 and the Judgment Day bit. And I have to say, everybody's raving about this episode. Everybody's like, wow, episode 5. Wait till you get to episode 5. Now, again, you know what's going to happen if you've read the book. So I was a bit like, okay, this is going to be pretty cool. What I really didn't like is like two fundamental. Well, I'm just going to head. Okay, so they rushed it quite a lot. There's obviously quite an awful lot taken out, and it was dumbed down quite a bit, but fine. I mean, I get that. You're probably going to get normies watching this because they can watch it on just a spectacle type basis, and I guess that's the point. Ultimately, Netflix want people to like it. They want people to watch it and people to subscribe, right? As we all remember, like, share, and subscribe. So I get that, but then they almost then sort of take the brakes off. And then the last 3 episodes are a completely different tempo. So you kind of had this sort of it would be like in the old days where you had this mid-season finale, which would be episode 5, and then you got another 5 episodes. But then because you've only got 3, and then the last episode is really like book 2. Again, for me, that didn't really quite hang. I think there was some great stuff tackled in the last 3 episodes, and again, they're actually not book one. So it's almost like they kind of done book one in the first 5 episodes, and this is a huge book, right? And then brought in bits from books 2 and 3 to set up season 2. Now, what I've seen of season 1 and knowing what's in season book 2 and 3, I think season 2 actually could be really good, and I think I could really get behind it more and enjoy it more. Just knowing what kind of things happen, and I think it's got the potential to even make me happy. I know, right? So yeah, I say I've really struggled to think about what to say, how to review this, because I think as a show it's very solid. I'd say yes, go watch it. You'll probably enjoy it. It's a great bit of sci-fi. I think, yes, it's a little bit too stylistic in places and dumbs it down a bit too much for me, but I get why. And I'm not saying dumb down that, you know, so in a disrespectful way. I mean, the book just goes into so much more detail. We'll see about, and the reason and I say the reason I love the books is because there's all this really heady stuff in there that you've really got to think about. And I prefer that kind of sci-fi and Arthur C. Clarke more to sort of more character-driven sci-fi. Which I know is a really almost a hypocritical thing for me to say, but June's the same. You know, he's Herbert's not a massive one on characterization. He's much more the theories and the thing he wants to get across. That's very much up my street. I love read something and I really have to think about it, and I'll be thinking about it for days afterwards. Don't get me wrong, I love my character-driven sci-fi as well. And also that's why I do get when you transfer it to film or television, you've got to put more characterization in it. You've got to put more human elements in it. You've got to have people that you want to root for. So I get it. I absolutely understand why they made the changes that they have. And I think it's going to be hugely popular. I think in the main, people have been really receptive to this. And I think that's great, because if it gets people to go out and read the books, I think they'll be shocked when they read the books, kind of going, what's this? Because obviously it's very different. But if it just gets a handful of people to read the trilogy, I think that's a great thing. Same with June. If people are going out and reading the June series, or at least the first 4 books, that's a win. It's a win, right? People need to read more. People certainly need to read this kind of sci-fi that really sort of questions and challenges us more. So overall, I'd say a solid 7 out of 10 for a TV show. And I think a season 2 could be really exciting, knowing what comes next. Based on, it just felt far too rushed for me. In terms of just watching a show, like they say, they wanted to get to a certain point in the book, which is Judgment Day, like quite a ways through, and skipped over a lot more of the game bits and things that I would have liked to have seen more of. I also could not stand Aggie. I mean, she's an absolutely stunningly beautiful woman and the most amazing lips you've ever seen. But I kind of feel that that's why she was there. I found her irritating. I found her over the top. I mean, she's supposed to be a scientist, right? And I will say this is probably a bit of a plot hole for me in the books as well, right? There's this whole thing about the countdown, and they're like, oh, you don't want to see what happens when it gets to 0. And it's like, why not? Not one person called their bluff, right? I'm like sitting there going, like, she's being a complete div about it all anyway. And, you know, especially initially, fair enough, she's scared. She's got this countdown. She doesn't know what's going on. The second time, when she restarts the nano experiment thing, and then the countdown comes back, and then she just all starts crying again and calls Saul. There would have been a point, right? And again, this is missing from the book as well, that I just think is that there would be like a group of scientists, right? You all know this countdown. You're being told like you don't want to find out when it goes to 0. But either way, they're either driving you to give up your life's work and everything that means everything to you, and potentially driving you to delete yourself, or something bad's going to happen when it gets to 0 anyway. So I can't believe there wasn't anybody that said, right, go to the authorities, put me in a bunker in something, so if I explode or something, I'm not going to take out the world, or send me to the moon. I don't get, but let's figure out what happens when the countdown gets to 0. Does anything happen when the countdown gets to 0? And she's supposed to be like, it's highly intelligent scientists. They're all scientists, and none of them are like, don't you think we should figure out what happens when it gets to 0? Really bugged me in the book. Bugged me even more in this because the way she was behaving, just being a complete. Anyways, so when they kind of hoof her out of after episode 5, I was really pleased about that. And also found Titania a little bit irritating as well. More so, I think it was a great invention. Obviously, this character doesn't exist in the books at all. But it's just the portrayal is just that very kind of modern, sneery, got a bad smell under my nose, smug bitch. There's no real nuance to her psychopath nature, right? It's just lots of smiling and smirking and shooting people. Very irritating. And she's even more irritating at the end. I was like, oh, okay. So overall, definitely worth a watch. Some great new characters, some not great new characters. So as an adaptation, now, as I've already kept stepping away from, there's a lot of changes in here. And I get it that they wanted to move it out of China. But what I find really, everybody's like, oh, there's this all, diverse cast and all this normal stuff. But there's virtually no Asians in it now. And obviously the 2 characters that get killed are both white. There's a surprise. So Jack gets killed and Will dies. Surprise. So out of the group, everybody's got their plot armor. Poor old Jack and Will. They're out of here. Anyway, so in the book, as it says, just a couple of things I just wish they'd leaned into more. So the game. So the game goes right the way through to the equivalent of the 21st century. When they're playing the game, it literally they arrive in the game, and it looks like New York. They're outside the UN building, or equivalent of like a UN building. That's how far they just how much time they spend in the game. And they think they've also got a solution to the 3-body problem. They think they've pretty much got there. And then when they go into the game and they sort of hand over this piece of paper with all the theories on it, goes like we're nearly there. Look, we're getting close. They literally take the paper, read it, and they just tear it up, and they're not interested. And this whole sort of situation kind of kicks off, and it's like, and this is how they then find out that the Transalorians have already left. They've already decided to go. The problem can't be solved. They're also not really interested in solving the problem anymore. And it's all about them leaving. And not everybody can go. So a lot of people will be left to die on the planet and Trisalorian. And the majority of them go off on the ships. But there's much more, say, this evolving story and the interaction, and say there's a lot of interactions that happen within the game. Like they very lightly touched on that Copernicus was there, and then other characters like Newton or whatever they call it, Irving, and whatever Einstein, but these conversations are really important, and it's because of these interactions. It wasn't about getting to the point that. Once you got to a certain level in the game, then they got invited to the seminar, effectively. And even though we see this group of people, it's called the ETO in the books, Earth Trisalorian Organization. So even though we see it as an organization, they don't really explain, they don't give it a name. And also in the books, there's like different factions within the ETO, which are really interesting. So you've got some factions who think they're just coming here to wipe us out, and they're actually going to help wipe us out because they're so disillusioned with humanity. You've got other factions who are like, well, no, they're here, they're our saviors, and we're all going to live in harmony together. And you know, so there's always almost these different factions within the ETO are almost like sort of fighting each other within the ETO. And so again, the organisation is a bit more sort of complex and diverse than just it's just a group of people who have this almost like religious cult. It's more than that. And this kind of leads on to, so I think that, you know, that kind of bit more explanation about the ETO would have been good. That it's not just sort of this superficial cult, which is kind of what they made it look like. Because this organisation lasts for hundreds of years, right? This thing's been around, it will go on. So the bit, yeah, so Judgment Day. Oh, the other piece about like with Benedict Wong's character, Dashu, who is the only one that has the name of his character in the book, and he has a much bigger role in the book as well. And he's a bit shady. He's not a bad person at all, but his methods are quite questionable. And you kind of find that obviously, yeah, he's been sacked and moved on from various jobs because of his ethics, shall we say? But he gets the job done. And that's why he's involved, because they want people who kind of think outside the box. And also from the jump, and this is the thing, you don't really see sort of any government involvement till really late when they go to the UN. Whereas here in the books, we've kind of got the government know about the Transalorians. They know that they're coming. And it all kind of interweaves until then you then get the bit with the scientists, and then Wang gets pulled in and Shu's pulled in, and then they find out what the government knows and have been planning for this, and so on and so forth. So, but he is the one that comes up with using the nanotechnology to take out Judgment Day, and it's quite a long speech, and he goes into quite a lot of because there's basically excuse me. You've got the Chinese government, but you've got governments and generals from around the world who are obviously trying to think, how do we deal with this situation? So it was much more obvious in the book that this is a world global problem. So even though, yes, everybody knows, you didn't really see any governments really involved in the show. So there was a transmission that was intercepted, and it's held on the hard drive in Judgment Day. And this is kind of like the key bit of information that the governments need to know. Like this is almost like the secret agenda. Like if we know what's on this, we can fight it, kind of thing. And the problem is like, how do we get to the hard drive? Because they've got like a failsafe. So if basically they get discovered at any point, they can just wipe the hard drive. So Dashu comes up with this idea using the nanotechnology that basically it'll be so quick, so fast that before they can react and wipe the hard drive, it's game over. So, and also, and I think the thing that's really important to say is there aren't families and children. This isn't some religious cult on a boat. It's you know, there's people on the boat, but they're basically sort of soldiers and military people guarding the hard drive. So 20, 30 people or something. So this whole layer, and I get it, again, it's to, you know, put the human element in there and make you care more. But I think they just actually went for something that they just wanted that water cooler moment that, and it worked. Everybody's like, wow, episode 5, it's so like gory and it's this and it's that. And I just found it a bit unnecessary, I think, with the families and stuff being on there. And the thing that really annoyed me was the speed. It's kind of going through, and you got like, you literally, so they can see it coming. They can see this invisible thing coming. Like they can see the destruction of this thing coming towards them. Now the whole point of this plan was that it happens so fast that the crew don't have time to react to wipe the hard drive. So this is like a bit of a stupid plot hole, that they've got this whole thing that Mike has time to realize that something's happening. He runs this, like physically gets the hard drive and runs off with it rather than just wiping it. This is like quite a fundamental thing. And what happens is it's the same like nanotechnology, and it's all done in the Suez Canal, but it's fast. So literally the ship comes through and this thing just whips through the ship, goes right through the ship. And again, people are cut in half, they're decapitated. So you still could have shown that, but it just would, you know, I say just, but it would have been like more military people and things like that. So literally like someone hears a commotion, they sit up in bed and poof, they're in half. So no one has time to react to stop them like wiping the hard drive. So when people were kind of going, oh, episode 5, Judgment Day, oh, it's like, I just really was like, come on, especially if you read the books. Why are you cheering this? It's such a massive plot hole that this guy grabs the hard drive, runs off with it, and by some miracle the hard drive doesn't get cut in half or destroyed in any way, shape or form when he's like the technology comes through and stuff collapses on him. It was just stupid, and it was all just done to have that, was it red wedding moment where I think people call, I didn't watch Game of Thrones, I say that, but it's that whole kind of shock value. And yes, you still could have had that shock value. You could have shown it going through the ship really quickly. You still could have shown people getting cut in half. But this whole stupid thing of him running off with the hard drive and the hard drive doesn't get damaged is just stupid, in my humble opinion. So I think that bit kind of sat most with me, like the bit everybody's raving about, and I'm just like, but this is just, but yeah, there's umpteen things you could have done with that hard drive because it was done so bloody slowly. If you're going to do it that slowly, just drop the soldiers on board and shoot people, right? Because that was the whole discussion in the war room in the book. It's like, right, if we try and put people on the ship, they'll wipe the hard drive. If they do this, they've got time to destroy the hard drive. And for some reason, this doesn't come up at all. Okay. So, yes. So for me, there's like, you know, again, from the opening, you see Vera, and she's mixed race. They've changed her backstory that her father's now Mike Evans. That wasn't. It was one of the Chinese soldiers at Red Coast is her father that she marries. Not out of love, but kind of just he treats her well and kind of looks out for her and stuff. And, you know, she's like, well, at that point she thought she was never going to get to leave Red Coast, so why not? Yeah, so for me as an adaptation, I think there is, I guess, one or two too many liberties taken for me. And like I say, a lot of the thinking stuff was taken out, which I get. I think if there's too much thinking stuff, a lot of normies and people will just switch off, that it's just too, you know, they've got to up the ante, they've got to up the people characterization bit. I get it. And probably if they made a version that I liked, most people would hate it. And I get it. It's absolutely fine. But I just think there's some things that people are really like, yay. I was like, no. And so Sol is now a Wolfacer. So he is basically going to be Loji from book 2, who's like the main character there. So the whole bit, and I think in the book he's like with a prostitute, not a somebody he randomly picked up and stuff like that. He's a bit more seedy. Is Loji. And it's quite an interesting bit about his character. I don't know whether that will be in season 2 or not. But they, you know, they did introduce the whole figuring out how to put people into stasis, which I said they must have to find this out, because how can Wade be in this series when he's actually in book 3, which is like 400 years later? So clearly they have to figure out status, and we had the whole chimpanzee thing, so that was fine. Yeah, so for me as an adaptation, it's probably a 4, maybe a 5, if I'm being generous. There's lots of things that I was just like, I found it quite jarring and a bit difficult at times because it's not in the order. The reveal and the whole Sophon thing, we actually find out from what's her name? Sorry, all the names are blurring into one for me right now. But when oh God, I should know. It's a main character, so shame on me. Yawinjay. Yeah, so she actually tells them about the Sophons after like Judgment Day. She finds some stuff out about what's really in the Trisolurian message. And that's the other thing, right? So they're called what, Sonti in this? So yes, as I understand it, Sonti is how it's written or pronounced in the actual Chinese version. When the translation was done into English, it was Trisolurians. So I'm a bit like, well, if you're trying to westernize it and you want Western people to read it, and a lot of people who are going to watch it are the people who have read it, wouldn't you just keep it as Trisolurians rather than changing the name to something they're not familiar with just to annoy people or rub them up the wrong way? So yes, I keep talking about Trisolurians rather than Sonti. Sorry, but that's what's in the English version, and that's what I know I'm at. So anyway, so she finds something. It's this secret transmission that's in the hard drive, which they've done something different in the show, you know, with the bug thing. But she's the one that tells us about the Sophons. So I think like these kind of interactions are actually really good. And I like the way they drive the plot and drive her story, which is quite different in the show. But, you know, not the end of the world. So, yeah, so part of me, so this is such a difficult one to review because part of me is actually quite disappointed about what I've seen, about the adaptation. But I can also just sit there and watch it as a sci-fi TV show and go, you know what, it's pretty decent. So I am completely torn. I am honest. So I didn't just parking the book brain. I enjoyed it. I could just sit there and go, this is a pretty decent bit of sci-fi. Well done, Netflix, right? You've made something that's accessible. And I say, knowing what comes up in the other two books, I think season 2 is actually going to be much better because you haven't kind of got all the setup. Some of the characters carry through. Like I said, they've already set up Sol being a wall facer. They've changed the other 2 wall faces. Shocker. They were all men and one was American. Now you've got a Chinese and a lady. Fine, whatever. Yeah, I mean, and looking forward to bringing in the characters called Wall Breakers, who the Trisolurian of Sonti bring in to sabotage the wall faces. All this stuff should be great if it's done well. Yeah, I think for me there's just like too much left out that I personally really enjoyed from the books. To really given this a massive thumbs up as an adaptation. I think a lot more of this sort of stuff is in the Chinese version, the 30 episode. But like I say, that's 30 episodes to do book 1. And they pretty much done book 1 in 5 episodes. So like I say, it did feel very rushed to me. But overall, a good achievement. Well done. Oh, and the other thing with the blinking sky, it's only Wang that sees this in the book, and yeah, so things like that I just found a bit trite because it's, oh, look at our special effects, bending the world stuff. I just find it a little bit jarring. But when you're just watching it, sci-fi show, trying to get the point across about how much control the Sophons have, even though we didn't know it was Sophons at that point, I get it, makes sense, easy to follow. Anywho, I guess, you know, there's no pleasing some people. Yours truly. So I don't want to deter people from going to watch this. Say, I think it's a really good bit of sci-fi. Go watch it. And if it makes you want to read the books, do. And then do you have the same views as me when looking at the adaptation? Or should it be just that? I mean, it does say based on, not adapted on, you know. So, and I will say they have got the main theme of the book. The sort of the main themes are there. I can't say they're not there. I'll be disingenuous if I did say that. I think there's just some extra things I was really looking for to be in this adaptation that are missing, that for me just take it down too many notches. But that's just me being picky, I guess. Because when I look at this and I compare it to like June, and I put a few comments on X as we all do, and I've come in for a bit of stick, and that's fine. The point I'm trying to make is that I think June was a very solid adaptation. Yes, things were removed, but it's probably still like a 90-95% adaptation. And people came in pretty hard on Dune Part 2 for the things they left out. Even though they said overall, look, it's a good film, I'm not knocking the film, or somebody says, oh, it was a great film. But when they talk about what their criticisms are, it was all about what was removed, not so much the film or the way they changed the character, or the, you know, how the character behaves is different. But still gave it a good rating, right? So when I look at this, and people who have read the books and are reviewing this are putting it kind of on an equal par as Dune, in the sense that, oh, this is great, you know, this is great, blah 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 blah. And I'm like, well, that logic just doesn't make sense to me, right? So if you're saying Dune's great and it's a 90% adaptation, this is great, but it's probably about a 40% adaptation, maybe 50 at best. I mean, I guess you could up that, because they are pulling stuff in from the other books, and they did actually bring them across, like, you know, as they are in the other books. So you could say, well, even though they're not in book one, they are representative of the other books. So maybe you could put it up to maybe 60% representation. How does that make that as good adaptation as Dune? It doesn't, right? The argument doesn't stick. So I think you can absolutely say, look, I really enjoyed the show, it's a good show. But when you're trying to say Dune's a good film and a good adaptation, 90% of the source material, and then with this you're saying it's a good show, good adaptation, when it's probably only about 60% of the book, that logic doesn't stack up. And that was the point I was trying to make on X. I probably didn't get it across particularly well, so I'm getting a bit of stick from people because I've sort of criticized some other people whose views I do respect, and they're entitled to their opinion. I maybe didn't get my point across too well, but I just didn't get the logic. You can't say that's a great adaptation at 90% and that's a great adaptation at 60%. Just doesn't tie, doesn't gel. But I don't think anybody's saying this is a bad sci-fi show. It is a good sci-fi show. Just for me, not a great adaptation. There you go. That's pretty much it. That's all I can say on the three-body problem. I think knowing the content in the next two books, I think the adaptation rate will be higher, because it's a lot more that I think how they've approached season one, seeing how they can approach the next two, I think that adaptation can be higher. But it's quite interesting. They pretty much done book one in 5 episodes, so maybe we only get another season, probably another 2 season tops. But then I guess that's very Netflix, isn't it? 2 or 3 seasons. There's very few shows that go past that, like Stranger Things, a couple of others. But generally, Netflix originals don't run for that many seasons. So maybe they've been told that you're 3 and out, do with it what you want. You've got 8 episodes, 3 series, go adapt. And that's fair enough. And then I can see why they would have tried to get through so much of book one in season 1. But hey ho, we'll see where it goes. So my views of the adaptation of a season 2, if we get one, could be completely different, and I hope they are, because there's some great stuff that they can do with those other 2 books. So we will see. So I'm not sure if any of that helps you decide whether to watch this or not, but I just love for people to go watch it. If you like your sci-fi, do go check it out. I do not want you to go watch this. It is good. But more importantly, go read the books. There is so much more in them, as you'd expect, like any book. Same with Dune. Go read the books. There's so many more layers to Dune than there is in the film, even though I love the film. As you know, gushing about it. So I guess I'm pleasantly surprised in one way. If you read my tweets when I was watching it on Friday, you probably thought I was absolutely going to bash this to death, because I was just literally knee-jerk reactions to things going, what is going on? Why is that here? Don't like that. But, you know, I've got off my high horse, reflected on it a bit, and just really talked about the things that say, it's just still really sticking in my brain today, of the things that I'm like, yeah, actually, that was quite good in hindsight. That, no, not for me. So go check them out. Go check them out. Let me know what you think. Do leave me a comment. I do try and answer people if you leave me a comment, but would love to know people's thoughts on this. I think in the main, most people are going to like it, and then most people will think I'm overly critical, and that's cool. I don't have a problem with it. You know, that's just how I feel. But would love to know your thoughts. Are you looking forward to a season 2? And are you going to go out and read the books? I hope so. They're also on Audible if you don't have a lot of time for reading, or just the size of the book kind of puts you off. The adaptations are great on Audible. I also have those because it's quite a useful way, rather than me, because I didn't have time to reread these books before the show came on. Yeah, Audible was a great way of going through and picking up reminders of everything that's going on. So yeah, go check it all out. Have a great week. I will be back with more reviews. So much has come out this week. So I've got to talk about Roadhouse. I've got to talk about Ghostbusters Frozen Empire, the Alien Romulus trailer. I've also managed to see American Fiction, the whole George Lucas debacle. There's just so much that's happened this week. It's absolutely insane. So I will be back probably with an Atomic Pop chat covering all those other things shortly, but I just wanted to get my 3-body review out there while it's all fresh in my head. So Atomic Pop chat coming in soon. And I will be back next week. It is the bank holiday. It's Easter next weekend, so I've got a bit of time to go to the cinema. I think I'm going to try and go see Immaculate, so I haven't got time to see it this weekend, unfortunately, but I'm seeing some interesting reviews come out for that. Not reading them, I don't want but seems like pretty positive from the vibe I'm seeing so far. So yeah, I've only dealt with like sort of a couple of non-spoilers just to see is it worth my time. But I want to go. I really want to go see it so I can compare it to, well, not compare it, but The First Omen. I mean, these might end up being completely separate stories, but they just look flipping similar right now. So anyway, I am now waffling. As always, do take care. Have a great week, and come and see me on Atomic Pop Chat soon. Take care. Bye-bye.